There have been a lot of lies told about me. One is that I'm left-handed. As you can see, I'm no lefty. Another is that I was some kind of cow thief. I threw a wide loop in my time, but I'm no cow thief, or hardly ever. I was a good hand for Mr. Tunstall. It's true, I did start out as a horse thief with old Johnny Mackey. Another lie is that I killed a man for every year in my life. Here's the truth on the holy book. I killed but 9 fellers before Pat shot me. After that, well, see, bub, I was in Fort Sumner in New Mexico territory visiting my girl Paulita. Her brother Pete was keeping a close watch on her. He didn't like a wanted man dating his sister. We was up to meet in the cantina. I was playing cards that warm night, my back to the wall, watching the door for her and for law dogs. I was a dozen hands into a game with a couple of vaqueros up from old Mexico. I pretended to drink more tequila than I was, letting them get good and drunk so they'd make all the wrong calls. Then, into the cantina came this nervous, quick-walking old man with a big bush of white hair around his head and a beak of a nose. He wore a funny old gray suit and knickerbockers and chewed a crooked cheroot. He spoke the Espanol to the bartender. Spoke it with a funny accent. "What the hell kind of Spanish that old duffer's talking?" I said out loud in English, not thinking he'd understand me. But he did. He turned with his Spanish wine in hand and looked at me real close, raising one of those old spectacles on a stick to do it with. And he said in English, "I have learned my Spanish in Spain, young man. But me, I hail from Germany." He said it like Shermany. "But I know many languages. Even some Comanche I know." He looked me up and down and says, "I have not seen you here before." "You want to play some cards, old horse?" I asked him. "I'll take German gold same as any other." When he smiled, there were only a few teeth in there. "No, I think not. You are a very interesting young man. You have this stamp of destiny on you, such as I have learned to see." That's how he talked. Such as I have learned to see. Struck me as real entertaining. A man sure gets tired of vaqueros and blacksmiths and cowpunchers for company. Here was a man who traveled to Europe. My ma, she was born in Ireland and I was born in New York, and I hankered to see more of the world, especially when my neck was like to be fitted with a rope halter in New Mexico. "The stamp of destiny," I repeated. "I like that." He nodded and drank his wine, staring at me the whole time. Then he gave me a little bow from the waist and walked out of the cantina. "Well, I'll be goddamned," I said, and the bartender laughed. "The doctor, Senor Victor, he has a silver mine," said the bartender, "but with no silver in it." He told me the doctor had a cabin at an old silver mine that was all played out some miles from town. He had some way to make ice down in that mine where it was cool, and sometimes he sold it to the town. He did some doctoring on them too, but most were scared of him. "But he always smiles and speaks softly to me." There was a priest in there in the cantina, as drunk as any one of us, hearing me and the bartender talking, and he spoke up and he said in Espanol, "The devil always wears a smile and speaks with a soft voice." I put it out of my mind and set to playing stud. That rickety-legged little Mexican dealing had given me 3 aces down. He was grinning, thinking he had me with his 2 pair, and his tall drunken partner with a pitted face was trying to look all cucumber cool. So I knew he had a hand too. So I said, "Boys, let's play it all out there and see what happens." They went for it. And when the next cards were dealt, I had me a full house, aces full of tens. When we turned those cards over, I never saw 2 sicker-looking vaqueros. I scooped up the double eagles except for one to buy him enough for a drink or two and gave him a wink to go with it, and I walked out. I was tired of waiting for Paulita. I was going to take the bull by the horns and find her. I went out to my mare and was leading her out through another alley on the street, thinking about where I'd look for Paulita, when I heard a scuffling behind me. I knew right away what it was. The drunk vaqueros wanting their money back. I jerked my single action and turned. Sure enough, they were coming out into the moonlight side by side. The tall one unlimbering an embossed silver shotgun while Mr. Rickety Legs was aiming his pistol. The pock-faced bastard smiled and missed so wide I never even heard the bullet pass. Hell, he didn't even hit my horse. I could hardly miss him from 8 paces, and my first round caught him right in the middle of the chest, knocked him back off his feet. The other vaquero would have done before with that shotgun, but the damn fool hadn't cocked it. He was working on that, cussing to himself as he realized it wasn't set when I shot him through the throat and just above the collarbone. He goes over crying out, Madre mia, and then spitting blood. He rolled over and tried to crawl away. I spent 2 more bullets making sure of them. And then I knew someone was watching. I could feel it. I looked around to see a shadow shaped like a man out on the street standing by a buckboard. There was a big halo of white around his head. Then I worked it out. It was that German doctor with the light from the whorehouse behind him. He said to me, Ach, hold your fire. The law will be here, sure. But if you help me load these men on my wagon, I'll tell them you are not here. And I will pay you for your help. You have already helped me so much tonight. He held up a leather sack and jingled it. What did he mean I helped him? Then, I remembered that doctors like to cut open dead folks to see what made them tick, and what made them stop ticking. And this man, something about him seemed like a kindly old uncle. Never had me a kindly old nobody. So I said, you can keep your gold, I'm flush now. Come ahead. We dragged the bodies to the buckboard, heaved them on. I heard some shouting, someone asking for the constabulary. The voices of the whores talking in Spanish nearby, so as soon as he got up on the buckboard, I slapped his horse's rump and pulled him off into the night. Pretty sharp after that, I rode off to Paulita's cabin out on the edge of Pete Maxwell's ranch land. We were shacked up for true, hardly going out for 2 days. Well, sir, we were drinking and loving it up in that shack on a hot July night, not so different from this one. But hotter it was, and hotter in a whorehouse on nickel night. We got hungry, as you do. I thought I'd go to a brother Pete's house, cut some beef from his stores like it offered. Maybe have a drink and talk to him about Paulita. Clear the air. We used to be friends. I had no shirt on that night, just some jeans. No gun, because I didn't want to spook Pete. Just a knife in my hand for cutting some steak for me and Paulita. I rode over barefoot and bare-chested singing to myself. I was a pretty good tenor, you know. Hard to believe hearing me now. I was drunk, but able to sit a horse. I still remember that the air felt good on my skin as I rode. I reined in when I saw some strangers on the porch of Pete's place. I was wanted for shotgunning Bob Olinger and shooting 1 or 2 of the others, so I was nervous. I skirted around the back, dismounted, and went in the back way carrying that knife. Went to Pete's room to ask him who those fellers were on the front porch. Couple of deputies is who they were. I found out later. And then I see someone in there. Just the shape of him in the dark. Doesn't look like Pete to me. So I say, who's there? And boom, the fella shoots me. When his 6-gun goes off, that flash showed his face. Pat Garrett. I'll never forget it. Fella I'd ridden with turned sheriff. He looked scared as a deer in a ring of wolves, even though he was facing a man without a gun. He fired twice. 1 round went right through my hand, changed direction and smashed a bone, passed through and smacked my left leg right above the kneecap. Second shot cut into my chest. I guess it nicked an artery. It spilled a mess of blood into my lungs. Getting shot like that felt like being kicked by the meanest mule there ever was. Then I was flat on my back trying to breathe, and Pat was yelling to his man, I shot Billy, by God. There were a lot of voices, including Pete's. And then I thought, I expect I'm dying. Everything went black.